you feeling inside? Come to the light where you can hide, and God will comfort you. Oh yeah, God will comfort you. 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 When it looks like your dreams have died and no one knows how you feel inside, come to the light where you can hide, and God will comfort you. God will comfort you. We invite us all to take 3 deep, conscious, healing breaths. Let your body relax, make your mind be at peace. Let our hearts open. With the deep breath, we ready ourselves. With the next deep breath, we go deeper into the core of our being, where we are comforted by the presence of peace, the presence of love, the presence of creativity and wisdom, compassion. If you see God as being outside of yourself, then this is a time to feel the presence wrapping you up in love and peace. And if you feel God, the one presence, one power is within you, and this is a time for you and me to go deeper into the Holy of Holies, where we are comforted, we are renewed, we are regenerated, we are restored, we are healed. We are given what we need for the next right and perfect step. We may not be given the entirety of the story that is spread out in front of us. We are given what we need in every moment to take the next right and perfect step. When we begin to feel that the presence, the one power, is around us and outside of us and is within us, and there's no place where the one presence, known by many names, there's nowhere where that presence is not. And so we feel that one presence here at Unity. We feel that one presence in the Peace Chapel. We feel that one presence in Sunday Morning Circle. We feel that one presence when we leave these doors. We feel that one presence when we pause at the kitchen sink. We give thanks that there's running water. We give thanks that there's hot and cold running water. We give thanks that the water can renew and refresh us. We give thanks for the rain and the sunshine. We give thanks that the drought is coming to an end. The rain is soaking in. We give thanks that if we have felt a spiritual drought in our own hearts and minds, that we allow that Spirit, that holy presence, to seep in dry, cracked places of the riverbed of our hearts, and we see the water moving back in, the Holy Spirit. We allow our hearts, our minds, any wounded places to be healed. As we take a few moments of silence, we take a few more deep breaths, we remember this place within us. We remember this for ourselves. We remember it for all that we're holding in our heart. We remember this. There is a silence into which the world cannot intrude. And there is an ancient peace that we carry in our hearts and have never lost. And there is a sense of holiness in us. That the thought of fear, or thoughts of feeling unworthy, never touched this place of deep holiness. Deep wholeness. And so we take a few moments of silence and we deepen into wholeness. For all those that we're holding in prayer, near and far. Those living in physical bodies and those now living in non-physical. We bless them near and far. And if there's a name you would like to speak out loud, this is the time to do that. Into this healing space. Pray for all nations everywhere, villages, little towns and communities all over this globe. We bless all those gathering in cathedrals and synagogues, tiny little churches, mosques, temples, drum circles, dancing circles, wherever our human brothers and sisters are gathering, generating peace, generating the energy that helps us to open and be available to the next right step. We hold all world leaders in our creative consciousness. We know that humankind has the capacity to create a world that works for all. We know this and we say, so it is, and so we let it be. Namaste. Good morning. Turn to somebody next to you and say, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world.
You are the light of the world.
Okay, that's always a risk when I turn you loose to talk to each other. So here we are. We are the light of the world. And pay attention to the person who said it to you, because there may be a moment when you forget. And when you forget, you can go to that person. You say, you know that thing you told me on January 25th? Did you say that to me again? You know who your people are, right? You know who your people are. that you can go to, or you can call up, or you can text, or you can email to say, you know what? I'm forgetting that the universe is conspiring for my good. I'm forgetting that all things are working on behalf of me waking up. I'm having a moment of forgetting right now. I'm feeling like I'm not the light of the world. And you need somebody on the other end of that phone who will kick spiritual butt. Who will say to you, are you kidding? You know who you are. And I have given permission to most of you to call me when I forget. Right? If I go to sleep, I've given permission to you to call me and say, you're going to sleep. You need to wake up. Right? So there's a reading that I did Wednesday night at contemplative service. And without exception, people came up and said, you know what, that was a great reading, so I'm going to do it again. So if you were here Wednesday night, this is your time to take a little nap, but for the rest of us, here we go. This is from a book by Stephen Levine, wonderful Buddhist teacher. My favorite book by him is simply titled, Who Dies? Nobody. You read the book. So Stephen Levine, he trained with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. He's a master in the death and dying work, but I would say more importantly, he's a master in the living work. So here we are. He says, now take a deep breath. There is a sacred journey we were each born to undertake. It is the great healing journey. We are explorers of the sacred unknown, of the truth that remains when all grasping at truth has subsided. You ever feel like you're grasping for truth so much that because we have such a tight grip, nothing is getting through? We are on a sacred pilgrimage that explores to our edge and beyond, investigating the process and the space in which this process is floating. We are mapping the vibrating boundary between the known and the unknown. And we proceed. Like Buddha, like Jesus, like Madame Curie, like Martin Luther King, past the fear at the gates, into the space beyond our knowing. We take step after step into unexplored territory where all growth occurs, approaching the truth and healing that arise from the heart when we go beyond the mind. We have taken birth into this scintillating, flickering body to discover the body in the body. The bright speck around which the pearl is formed. Approaching this essence at our center, we enter the breath within the breath. It's what Kabir was talking about when he said, we are born to the formless. We are born from the breath within the breath. We are born to explore our little body to find our true body. We are born to explore our little mind to find our true mind. We are born to explore our little heart to find our true heart. There is a sacred exploration that awaits us all. It is a journey from here to now. It awaits in just this moment, this very instant, this millisecond of being. We don't have to journey far. It is to discover what lies within us. It is not to become Buddha. It is not to become Jesus. It is not to become any of the other great spiritual masters. It is to be you. To be the light to which all the great masters have referred. It's as simple as that. When we take a deep breath and we feel the breath moving through our body, we're connecting with the breath within the breath. Dale Allen Hoffman was here a few weeks ago. He talked about the Ruach, the holy breath, the breath of spirit. And when we're practicing taking our deep breath, we begin to have this sense after a while that we're not breathing, we are being breathed. And we begin to sense that we are in collaboration with this breath within the breath. We are in collaboration with the Spirit, the one presence, that we have many words for and many names for, but until we experience it, we don't really know it. We don't really know it until we experience this for ourselves. And that's why we come to places like this, or we spend time in meditation, or we walk on the beach, or we do our art. We do these things to give ourselves over to the breath within the breath. The presence that we think about, the presence that we talk about, the presence that we read about, and then we experience it. So let's take another deep breath. So, in our Wednesday book group, y'all, there's so much going on here. It would take me all day to talk about it. But right now, I just want to talk about one little thing that I heard in book group last week. We're studying this book, Self-Observation by Red Hawk. And he's a really interesting fellow. And he says some really thought-provoking things. Like this: I am a soul. And I exist for a brief moment in a human biological instrument. So when you meet somebody today and they say, "Hi, who are you?" I'm a soul, and I'm living for a brief moment in a human biological instrument. But this is the part where I had my aha moment on Wednesday. It's talking about the Heisenberg principle, the uncertainty principle. Anybody feel like you know that principle really well? The uncertainty principle, which says simply, the act of observation changes the thing observed. And this is proven to be true on the microscopic level and the macro level. In other words, observation of subatomic particles to the observation of galaxies. Our observation changes things. And I knew, like a lot of you, I have seen clouds move by projecting your thoughts onto them. I've seen groups of people meditate and move hurricanes offshore. I've seen psychokinesis. I've experienced it. I've seen things. You have too. But I always thought about it in terms of the matter that exists right around me, but I didn't think of it in terms of galaxies. That we impact the movement of galaxies with our thoughts. And that was awesome for me to think about. But what this writer is inviting us to realize is when we know that on a scientific level, when we know the physics of how it works, that when we observe something, we impact the outcome. We impact the behavior when we observe it. That there is no greater thought right now, he says, than to know that when we observe ourselves honestly and without judgment, we are transformed. So we can observe the galaxies, and isn't that exciting? And we can observe the subatomic particles, and that's exciting. I can just stay all day thinking about that. resist a little bit when he says, if you observe yourself honestly and without judgment, you will transform. But usually, we're the last place we look within us for the transformation journey. I'll read about it. I'll do a book report on it. I'll go see a movie about it. I can talk about it all day long. Come on Sunday. But when it comes time to do self-observation without judgment and with honesty, isn't there just a book I can read? I'm just preaching to myself right now, and y'all are just sort of observing me. Is that okay? Self-observation. Why would that be important? They have the answer. The answer is here. So, guess what this is? It's not a painting from Bunny's class. This is chlorophyll moving through the veins of a leaf. And you know, there are a lot of moments of my life I don't remember in detail, but there is one moment that I remember in detail. The first time I looked through a microscope at chlorophyll moving through the vein of a leaf. In botany class. Loved that class. The professor had been the child of itinerant farmers. They moved around all the time. He barely had a 4th grade education. When something miraculous happened in his life, they paused long enough for him to get educated. He went on to college, and by the time I met him, he was a botanist professor. How great is that? Botany professor. Chlorophyll moving through the vein of a leaf. I still feel awe when I think about the relationship between biological forms, human beings, animals, biological forms that need oxygen, and trees give us that. I'm in awe that just that one divine creation of interdependent relationship. That trees give me what I need to stay in this human biological instrument. That is a subject of awe for me. And then I look at the galaxies. We're the first generation to see these photos. We're the first generation to see who our neighbors are. Does this create awe within you? It does. I propose to all of us, me included, that we have the same awe and the incredible beingness of who we are. Why would we not want to do self-observation? Why would we not want to bow on our knees to the awesomeness that lives within us? Why would we not want to know ourselves? We want to know the galaxies. We want to know the microscopic level, the subatomic level. Why do we hesitate when it comes to being in the presence of the one within us?
Because we're afraid of it.
What are we afraid of?
Change and what's going to happen, the unknown, the void.
Wow.
When you do open up to it, believe me, all HE double hockey breaks loose.
Well then, that must be why we don't do enough self-observation. Because we go right to the edge and we go, there be dragons there. I'm going to back up into non-self knowledge because I can read about it. I can go to the movies. I can watch about it. So somebody put this on Facebook, and I don't know who said it, but it really is good. We live on a blue planet that circles around a ball of fire next to a moon that moves the sea, and you don't believe in miracles? Or, you know, when somebody says to me, I don't go for this intelligent design of the universe, I go, really? Really? that makes me feel more awe than anything else, that any of us could look at the design of the galaxies and the chlorophyll going through a leaf, and we don't feel awe. That makes me stand in awe. Really? But to look at ourselves, to look into how the mind works, and to spend time in the center, the core of our being, where the one presence dwells, the Holy of Holies. You know, back in the day, and I'm talking about back in the day of the 2,000 years ago, remember?
That day.
The temple had 3 parts, and anybody could go into the first part of the temple. Everybody was welcome. And then the second part of the temple, you know, you pretty much had to have a love offering, a burnt sacrifice. And then there was the Holy of Holies, and you had to be a high priest to go into the Holy of Holies. And it said that the power was so great that they wore special gear on their chest and on their head and on their shoulders, and they would even tie a rope around the ankle of the high priest, so when the high priest felt so much power and would fall, they could pull him out with the rope. So what Paul is talking about has been known for a long time. The idea that when we approach the Holy of Holies, when we approach the center of our being, when we approach that edge, and we feel the fear of going beyond the edge and knowing what's at the core of our being, there will be a shaking apart of everything that we believe that is not necessarily true about who we really are.
Plenty of stuff that you don't know you don't believe. And plenty of things you don't know you don't believe. Trust me, been there, done that.
Okay, let me get that right. There's plenty of stuff we know that we don't believe.
Right.
Okay.
You don't know.
Things that we don't know.
You're not thinking about that. It's subconscious. And all of that stuff, the subconscious stuff that you don't think you're thinking about or know about comes to surface to be dealt with. Everything has to be uncovered and brought to the light.
Right. So everybody get that? Thank you, Paula. So some of us here have done Vipassana meditation. And y'all remember the story, I was just telling our friend about it yesterday, when I went to the 10-day silent retreat. And this is what happened. And you know, on the first or second night, I heard Mr. Goenka. He said, you know, breathe in, breathe out. What I heard was, follow your own desperation. I went, whoa, they're just going to jump right into it. They're just going to jump right in and clear it all out. So for the next 2 days, I pondered my desperation. The stuff that comes up when you're trying to get to the core. Okay, I know that, let me get past that, Whoa, where did that come from? I just wanted to go to the one presence. Now, have you ever been swimming in a lake that had debris in it from a hurricane or something? Things have to clear out, clean up. You got to clear water again. So I followed my own desperation. And I hit on some anger. Hard to believe. And I got really angry. And I could hardly sit in silent meditation. I'm thinking it's only the second day. I've got 8 more days to go. Oh, Lord. So I went out, was walking on the trails, and I was angry. You know what you look like when you're walking and you're angry? You know, and I wanted to look like I was exercising, but I was really purging. I mean, I was having an exorcism. I was clearing out some anger. And I thought about leaving. I know I signed up for a 10-day meditation. I know I signed up for this, but I think 3 days is enough, right? I have other people I could visit. I could go somewhere. I've got the time blocked out. Perfect. I went back that night and I listened to Mr. Goenka again. Breathe in, breathe out. Follow your own respiration. Oh boy, what's respiration? You mean I didn't have to do all that hard work? But that's what happens. We approach the edge, and we know that there's something deeper. And all of us have done that. We've stopped at the gate. Don't want to go in there because there's desperation in there. There's anger in there. There's fear in there. I don't want to go any deeper. But then what happens? Those of you who know. What happens? We cross the edge of the unknown and we move into the next known. We see the next right and perfect step. Charles Fillmore said this: we have within ourselves a greater capacity, an infinitely greater magnitude that stretches back to infinity itself. This is our co-founder of Unity. How could he have known this in the late 1800s, early 1900s? We have within ourselves a greater capacity, an infinitely greater magnitude that stretches back to infinity itself. So I have this on my office wall because there are days when I don't feel that greater capacity and that infinitely greater magnitude that stretches back to infinity itself. But it seems like if I've hit on an issue for which I need a solution, it seems like this is probably a good thing to remember. And we get into struggles about the simplest things when we have within us capacities that stretch back to infinity. How can we not be in awe at the Holy of Holies that exists within us? How can we not enter into the Holy of Holies, even if they have to tie a rope around our ankles and pull us out? How can we not enter into it? Meister Eckhart, mystic, political theologian, he said, love will never be anything else than there where equality and unity are. So we feel like we love ourselves. Yes? No?
Yes.
We feel like we love ourselves. We feel like we love one another. We feel like we love God. We feel like we love the one presence. We feel like we love our world. And there are actions in the world that do not speak of love. They do not speak of equality. They do not speak of unity. And I'm not sure that there's a template yet, except for the one within our own hearts that reaches back to infinity. We've been created to know the kind of unity and equality that Meister Eckhart taught about. We've been created to know about this. We've been created to live it and demonstrate it. And because we're not willing as a species so far to go into the deep, infinite resources that exist within us, we are still caught up in the struggle of non-equality and non-unity. Does that feel true? So let's do an experiment. Let's give ourselves over to deeper exploration of the infinite capacities within us so we know the creative solutions that already exist and what the next right step is. Not only for our own individual lives that are precious, but for the species, for the human family, and all other species who have issues and problems because of what human species has done. Is that okay to say?
Yes.
There is a scripture that says, all of creation is groaning and travailing, waiting for the manifestation of the sons and the daughters of the one presence. And sometimes our species has not acted with the infinite capacities, and we've made decisions that are less than the full magnificence of who we are. And because we've made decisions that are less than our full magnificence, we have the consequences to deal with. So sometimes I feel like, I hope my pillow's big enough because I got to put my head under it and hide. And all of you who've done that, How long did it take before you pulled your head out and said, okay, I'm ready to go again? You know, I'm ready, okay, I'm ready to know next right and perfect step. Took a while. So here we are. If you're here, your head is from out under the pillow. So Martin Luther King said it this way: we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. So let's go back and review this. We have within ourselves a greater capacity, an infinitely greater magnitude that stretches back to infinity itself. Breathe that in. Meister Eckhart, love will never be anything else than there where equality and unity are. And that's within our own hearts, in our own homes, our own communities. But then Martin Luther King comes along and says it this way: we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. Let's breathe that in. He's talking about the same infinite capacity that Fillmore was talking about. He's talking about the same place where love is so that equality and unity can be there. He's talking about the same place. Soul force. It's not a phrase we use a lot. It's a really good phrase, soul force. Because I can move into anger all day long, can't you? I can move into disappointment. I can move into judgment, can't you? I can move into analyzing what's wrong with the world. Can't you? Yes. Spirit's inviting me to replace physical force and the force of trying to control anything and the force of judgment and the force of non-compassion. And Spirit is saying, let there be soul. Let it be the force of the soul. And now when I say, may the force be with you, I'm thinking soul force. I'm thinking love force. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. And it's okay to challenge us, I hope, because I'm sure feeling the discomfort of being challenged. And Susan and I had breakfast a few mornings ago, and we were kind of swapping ideas and noting some things about this community. And you know, we can talk about the galaxies swirling around each other. We can talk about the chlorophyll moving through the leaf, but I'll tell you what, if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you're watching just within this tiny little community. We are like galaxies, and we move around one another, and we impact one another, and we swap stars, we swap atoms, we swap energy, we're impacting and affecting one another. We are observing one another. And here's the hitch. And I feel we're doing it really well. We are observing one another without judgment. We are observing one another with kindness and with love. And if there's anything else happening, that's where your work is. If there's any struggle happening in your environment, in your cosmology that's around you, if you're having any struggle, guess where your work is? If I'm having a struggle with the people in my life or the circumstances in my life, which I do, don't you? That's where my work is. It's the cosmology of me in this moment. And we have a cosmology here at this little tiny place called Unity Church. We have the cosmology of incredible soul beings in human biological entity form. We are moving around one another in our orbits, and we're impacting one another. And it really becomes powerful when we observe one another without judgment and with love. We observe ourselves and we observe one another. And we stop being addicted to the dramas and the stories that we make up. And we open up to the bigger story of what's unfolding from within us. Is that good? It's good enough for you? Mm-hmm. Good Yeah, for me too. So we're going to keep talking this afternoon after service. Dr. King said this, he said, yet Selma, Alabama became a shining moment in the conscience of humankind. If the worst in American life lurked in its dark streets, the best of American instincts arose passionately from across the nation to overcome it. That's what I want to claim for all of us right here, right now, for the world, that even though we can look at circumstances and say the worst is lurking in the dark streets, the worst of what humanity can do, we also see the best of humankind. We see the best of us rising passionately from across all nations, saying we can create a world that works for all. And where it has to start is with me observing honestly and without judgment and with kindness who I am and what I'm about, so that I can observe that same Christ presence, that same light presence in you. It makes sense to me. And if it doesn't make sense to you, just ponder these ideas and see what your wisdom says. I can't blame anybody for world events. I have to be responsible enough to do my own self-work so that I can have an impact on what's happening.
Amen.
That's what it boils down to. Okay, so connect the dots after service, 12:30, 1:30. We'll keep the conversation going. So let's take a deep breath. Sometimes coming to church means that we're going to challenge one another to go deeper. And I urge us all to pay attention to who's in the community with you. Because in the community, wherever you are, wherever your community is, there's going to be someone or someones who will serve as your healer, as your teacher, as your visionary, and as the person that says to you when you go to sleep, wake up. And we observe one another without judgment. Is that good? Okay. And that's all we're going to do for now. I love you. God bless you. Namaste. Namaste.